Sacramento neighborhoods. If you have friends that couldn't make it into the forum itself, because we did get full, then please encourage them to look at the Facebook page. And I want to thank the 12 neighborhoods that have co-hosted this and put this together this evening. But again, we're waiting for our assembly member to come on board so that we can introduce him to you and introduce some of the other folks that are coming with us tonight. Though we can do a couple of introductions. We have Maria and Jeff Calban, who are with United Neighbors and been doing a great job of having town halls up and down the state with folks. And then we've also got John Heath, and he is also with United Neighbors and United Homeowners Association. And there's Asemblymember McCarty. Yay! Nice to see you.
Hi, good evening. How are we doing?
We are really happy to have you with us this evening. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
We've got 12 communities here, represented the same 12 neighborhoods in your district that are very excited to get a chance to spend time with you.
Yeah.
I know you only have 30 minutes for us this evening, so we're
great. I need to leave about 25 minutes. So I have another meeting with some legislators at 5 to 7. So we gotta keep the show going. Thank you.
That's fine. We'll go as fast as we can. So let me just explain the format for this evening. United Neighbors is going to walk us through a presentation on Senate Bills 9 and 10. And then Assemblymember McCarty, we would love to hear from you. Your communities really want to hear kind of your thoughts. What are you feeling about this? Some of the challenges you've got. And then we'll move to a Q&A that will go very, very fast. So if you're okay with that, I will turn it over to Maria and Jeff Calvin of United Neighbors to give us a presentation.
Great, Sharon. We're very happy to be here tonight representing United Neighbors. We're a statewide coalition of neighborhood groups that keep each other informed about state legislation. We have an affordable housing crisis, and we would like to review SB 9 and 10, two bills currently working their way through the Assembly. I'm going to show you a brief summary. SB 9 allows 2 housing units on a lot, plus an ADU and a junior ADU or auxiliary dwelling units on a lot, or it allows a lot split with 2 units per lot. ADUs on those lots are only up to the local jurisdiction to determine. SB 10 allows 10 units plus 2 ADUs and 2 junior ADUs on a single family lot. All of these bills have no affordable housing requirement. They reduce setbacks to 4-foot side and rear. They have minimal parking, 1 car per unit, no parking if half a mile near transit. No infrastructure improvements are required of the developer, and no environmental review is called for, and no public comment or notification. So we would like to show you a typical neighborhood lot. This is 7,000 square feet. Your lots could be larger or smaller. The bill applies equally to all lots. So the current state law allows an ADU and a junior ADU on all residential properties. And in this case, our junior ADU is what used to be our garage. And as you can see, currently, we can actually have 3 different families in a single family lot. With SB 9, this is the first provision.
Provision 1, this is without splitting a lot, allows you to demolish up to 25% of your existing home and add a second house on the property. That property can also have the junior ADU and the ADU, and they're just 4-foot rear and side yard setbacks. Okay.
Provision 2 allows a lot split, and this part of the bill was intended for homeowners to split their lots and accommodate an aging parent or friend, what is being called gentle densification. But as you can see, whether you split the lot vertically or horizontally, 50-50 or 40-60, you realize that in splitting a lot, the house has to be demolished.
Yeah, and in provision 2 of SB 9, it requires that a minimum of 2 800 square foot units can be built on each property. SB 9 may not be exempted from state ADU laws. We don't know that yet. And when you look at a split like this, before you can split a lot, you have to have no mortgage on the property. So you have to be, if you have a mortgage, you have to be able to buy out your mortgage without having to use your land as collateral. Once you have your loan and you're ready to build, you have to demolish the house and you have to move someplace for the next 12 to 18 months during construction. Construction costs today are $300 per square foot, so that if you want to build the 3,200 square feet that we're showing in this drawing, that would mean a bank loan of at least $960,000. We're showing no garage and no curb cuts because you only need to park one car per unit. So we're showing those 2 cars in the driveway, and there are no parking spots out on the street.
So we question the intent of this bill. We do not see this as either affordable or possible for most average homeowners to take advantage of. But we do see this as a perfect opportunity for a developer with financing in hand to purchase houses that go up for sale and proceed to develop 4 new units of market rate housing because no affordable housing is mandated.
Now, SB 10 allows for a 10-unit apartment building on any residential lot in a transit-rich or an urban infill site, plus 2 ADUs and 2 junior ADUs. Again, no affordable units are required. And this bill allows 14 units plus, but says that only 10 count because more than 10 units would trigger a CEQA review or an environmental review process.
Now, there is an opt-out option on this bill, but when you stop to look at the face of what this allows, it's 10 to 14 units on any single family lot.
Which is
Folks have 30 seconds. You guys have 30 seconds.
So bottom line, we see that we go from a regular neighborhood and we lose our green space and we overburden our infrastructure.
But why would you do that when you can incentivize development of underutilized commercial corridors? And here you have the density and the ability to build really meaningful millions and millions of housing units without ever touching single family housing.
There you go. Well done.
Thank you. Okay, so
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you.
we thought that you'd said that we're very sympathetic to the fact that we know that you probably have thousands of bills crossing your desk looking for your input, and you might not know them all in depth. So we kind of wanted to get you up to speed. So we'd love to hear your thoughts now.
Sure. Yeah. Before I get that, can you just go around and tell me who's here? I know Carrie from our Elmhurst neighbor. I see Patricia. I know that she's Elmhurst as well. Can you, and Maggie, can you go to the others just so I can meet you guys?
Yes, absolutely. Let's see if we can get you a view that looks a little more like the gallery view. So you just met Maria and Jeff. John Heath is with United Neighbors, and John, you have United Homeowners Association, is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
Hi, Assembly
Okay.
Member. We represent the unincorporated communities of Windsor Hills, View Park, and View Heights in Los Angeles County, and we're happy to be here and spend some time with you.
I just want to know who. That's good. I like to meet other people, but who's from my neighborhood? So Maria and Jeff, are you from Sacramento?
No, we're Los Angeles.
Okay, thank you. So I know Maggie. So then who? Cassidy and Chris. Well, Christine, my staff. So where's Cassidy? Is she from my neighborhood?
Hi, Member. I'm Cassidy from Senator Wiener's office.
Gotcha. And Sharon, are you from a neighborhood too?
No, I'm from Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara. So really, we just have. And Jean, where are you from?
We actually have, I think, over 40 participants. So you're just seeing the panelists.
Yeah, this is just a panelist.
Gotcha.
From your
Okay.
community is
Sorry, thank you.
Child, Colonial.
Sorry, Assemblyman, I'm from Lamb Park.
Okay.
Correction, we have 97 participants.
I see. Okay. So, so your next question is, where's my take on these two bills?
Well, those and Senate Bill 615, which gave us good tools, right? So we were just
Well, I'll start on SB 9 and 10. So I've supported both these bills before in the past. I voted for them or similar versions of them in the prior years. In my view, SB 10 is more of a permissive bill. This permits cities, gives them the tools to do this upzoning on specific lots. SB 10 is frankly very similar to what the city of Sacramento is doing right now with their update of our general plan. To my knowledge, I was a council member, was around the last time we did the big general plan update. So SB 9 by Senator Atkins is very similar to a very heated debate we have. If you drive around Sacramento, you'll see signs going both directions on there. So, I view that these are bills needed for California. Needed to address the housing shortage. I think that I trust the city of Sacramento in their planning and zoning department to make sure that duplexes and threeplexes and fourplexes don't, McMansionize neighborhoods and really upset the scale and the very unique character of some of our amazing tree-line neighborhoods. The one issue that I think is a legitimate issue, and honestly, I'll say this to the proponents, is parking. Some streets in Sacramento, maybe you can squeeze in a duplex or a threeplex, but if you only offer one parking unit and there already is a very constricted street, maybe it's already kind of dense and so forth. I think that's the one legit issue that could be addressed. But I mean, this is something that's going to happen over a number of years. So I don't see, investors coming in and tearing down streets and having, in my view, this will permit more creative uses of underutilized land. We've done this in a number of years. Sacramento's made it easier to do ADUs and lot splits on alleys and so forth. We built an ADU in our backyard 15 years ago. So I know specifically the process. I remember we had paid crazy fees for that, and now they've since changed the whole system, so it's much easier now. But yeah, I want to be forthright. I'll hear you guys out, but I have voted for these bills before, and I plan on voting for them when they come up before the committees I'm on or the floor in the coming weeks.
Got it. Okay, so thank you for sharing that. Some of the neighborhoods that are attending tonight, such as North Natomas and Mengen Park and Land Park Neighborhood Association, they put in some questions for you, and they just would love to hear some of your thoughts on more of the topics that you just talked about. One in particular is, post-pandemic, we lost a net, 1 million residents or 100,000 residents, something like that, out of the state of California. And the question that a lot of people have is, these bills often originated pre-pandemic, and they were particularly meant to help Bay Area housing shortage crises. There's an awful lot of work going on to audit housing and community development on the RENA numbers. There's a lawsuit going on. So one of the questions we had for you is, is your sense that post-pandemic, when people don't have to live necessarily where they work anymore, do we really need all the housing that the state's housing community development department says we do? Is it still the same?
Yeah, I think there's a housing crunch still. I mean, yeah, we did lose people to other states, but we still grew. We didn't grow as much as other states did. So I could only imagine, had we not had this migration to other areas, the more pain we would have seen in some of our regions, which are housing short. And so I don't need to tell people here in Sacramento, look in the Craigslist or Zillow to see how much housing prices have gone up by and rents. We just have an extreme housing shortage here in Sacramento. And I think that around the state as well, we do have a supply and demand imbalance. Some of these bills, like the other ones, the second one by Senator Wiener, it allows the city. It's a permissive tool. And my understanding with SB 9, it may be irrelevant anyway. If this bill passed and the city of Sacramento did nothing, this would be the policy. If this bill went away, the city of Sacramento most likely would adopt this policy anyway. So it's a very unique thing going on in our city right now. The upzoning, not the upzoning, the general plan amendment is very, very similar to what's happening with SB 9.
Okay, thank you for that. One of the questions that we get a lot as we're watching this dialogue take place across the state, and we've gotten it from one of your neighborhoods, is the question about gentrification, right? That low-income neighborhoods, are very concerned. Diverse communities are very concerned that they could be gentrified by developers who can afford to buy their homes. And then, Senator, where'd you go? I'm sorry, Asemblymember, where'd you go? There you are. Okay, that there's a lot of concern of communities being pushed out, right? So, and there have been LA's Urban League took this stand, the LA Democratic Party took this stand, Limerick Park is taking this stand. So curious, how would you address concerns around gentrification and diverse communities being pushed out by what could happen with Senate Bill 9 and 10?
Yeah, I think they would most likely bring in the same style and affordability of housing that we have now in neighborhoods. Like, 3 of the faces I see right now are in Elmhurst. So I think that Elmhurst, if someone builds a new house or they do an ADU right now, it's probably not in the affordable sense per se, but it's most likely a smaller unit. So the rents are probably a little bit lower than a bigger house. I think overall, it probably is not going to decrease the housing costs, but probably be at equilibrium on the prices in the areas. But I do hear some of the concerns as far as speculators coming in and doing the teardowns. I'm more concerned about that. I think a lot of the areas of Sacramento, we have big lots. Some of our lots, especially in the central parts of the city, are 100 feet deep many times, and there's just kind of wasted land on the back with a lot of alleys. So I think there's a lot of potential to build some very unique do and try and frankly quadplexes, which, you know, if I drive you or Sharon, you around or the others around Sacramento, you'll see some amazing projects that are 3 or 4 plexes that blend right into existing neighborhoods.
Gotcha on that. Okay, so this is a good question this is something that we actually are seeing a lot of, especially in the Wall Street Journal and the LA Times and sometimes the SACB. We are seeing institutional investors coming here and they are buying single family homes because the stock market way overheated in the pandemic, right? So people are looking for places to plow money to get a return, and they're putting it into single family homes. There was a recent story about how Deutsche Bank is one of those major investors that is buying single family homes in the United States. How can the average homeowner then, you know, get into a home affordably when what you're competing against is a bank or an institution or a pension fund or a foreign entity that could just outbid you? Don't you think that's part of what's driving some of the housing prices high? And what legislation could we get that would help us with that, right? Should we have to compete, I guess is what I'm saying. Should we have to compete against Deutsche Bank to get a home? It makes it makes no sense.
Yeah, well, that's currently happening now, right? We saw this here in Sacramento. Those people here in Sacramento, I think it was called Blackstone or Blackbriar. I think one of the things that Jason Bourne thinks. So I'm getting confused with Jason Bourne, but like I think it's Blackstone. Blackstone, exactly.
That's correct.
They went and bought a ton of rental homes during the last boom, and they're just owned by, you know, these Wall Street investors that sit on them, and they're terrible landlords, and they let their property go to crap, and especially neighborhoods like North Potomac, for some of the people here who mentioned North Potomac earlier. So we're actually looking at prohibiting that, you know, in Sacramento, or cracking down on that, not in California. But I don't think that this policy is going to make it any worse for people to be able to afford homes. I think it's going to make it better. The simple laws of supply and demand, economics 101, which I learned in all my public policy courses, so that the more housing, regardless of the product, you know, has an impact to affect lower prices overall with more product on the market.
So that's an interesting point that you bring up, because we hear that, you know, that argument is being made, right? That, you know, just put more supply out there. However, you know, one of your colleagues, Isaac Bryan, just recently said, yeah, but that would assume that all the supply would have to drop at one time. And that's not going to happen. That what we see actually in the meantime, one of your colleagues from Santa Monica, Richard Plume, saw, you know, a home in Santa Monica that sold a couple of years ago for 1.1 million. It was raised and 3 townhouses were put on it, which is sort of following the intent of an SB 9 kind of a bill. And each of those townhouses sold for 2 million. And the developer got 45% profit. So what is in SB 9 or 10 that safeguards communities from this? And again, how can a community member looking to buy a home, a place to live, compete against somebody who would be able to essentially sextuple their profit? What can we do to help strengthen that?
I know I'm a California lawmaker, not Santa Monica, but I don't see those examples happening here in Sacramento. I see some of these lots potentially that tear down a lot in Elmhurst or Tao Park and these neighborhoods. I don't see, you know, that type of economics penciling out. I see overall we'd be better off having, you know, more housing on the market. So. Which is why we think something like SB 6 and SB 15 are really good. By the way, Sharon, I really appreciate, I know you're the moderator, but I love to hear from my constituents. I don't want to debate you. I mean, I have only 7 minutes left with my constituents, so I'd love to hear from them. So we actually have some questions that have come through the Q&A window, right? And some of these, so one is from Scott Lichting in East Sacramento. And we've had questions come in through about trees, right? And about excessive heat and the canopy that trees provide for front yards, right? So this is from Francesca Reitano. And so what is your answer to that? You know, with the fact that we've got an environmental crisis, we've got probably the worst fire season ever headed for us. If trees are removed to housing,
for housing, what happens to the canopy's role in protecting us from heat islands and air pollution?
Well, unfortunately, Elmhurst is dominating. I see 3 Elmhurst faces and Francesca, the question from Elmhurst. So, and my neighborhood is stepping up right here. Yeah, so Francesca is very aware of our tree ordinance in the city of Sacramento, and we're the city of trees, and we've gone, a long way to make sure we protect our heritage trees throughout our city. So I have no doubt the city will protect our existing tree canopy with with policies here in the city of Sacramento. So,
Maria, did you have something you wanted to point out?
Well,
I would like to add,
you know what, Marie, can we just, I only have 4 more minutes. Can I hear from my constituents? I'm fine with LA, Santa Barbara people, but how about my constituents?
I'd like to pipe up here. This is Patricia. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, thank you.
I just wanted to say that, Kevin, there have been as many as 104 participants in this. You're not seeing them somehow because the way this is set up. I hope that your staffers are getting down the questions in the Q&A. I would like to let people know who are participating that there is a Q&A. Please put your questions in there now so that Assemblymember Kevin McCarty can get those. And also please put where you're from, because not everybody on this is from Elmhurst or from out of town. All throughout your city is represented here. So please go ahead. Oh, I see the Q&A going
It's
up.
getting beautiful.
Just put where you're from. That's good.
Nola Boyer from East Sacramento feels that both bills will destroy her neighborhood. And she really loves the unique homes in her neighborhood. And along with it, Terry O'Brien is a 65-year-old that's retired, and he feels like his home is his life savings. How does having an apartment building put on his street not affect the value of his home? And of course, the parking question has come up a lot, Kevin. So you're gonna.
I went for a walk. The one issue that I agree that's a problem that I think we need to work out, especially in the city of Sacramento and their ordinance, is parking. So I'll give you that. But I went for a walk the other day with my dog through Elmhurst, Oak Park, and East Sac just to look at some well done duplexes and triplexes, and I don't think that they bring down property values. I think it'd be the opposite. I'm not a person who has a lot saved other than what we have in our home equity, and so I have zero fear this is going to negatively impact our property values. Conversely, this is kind of counter to what your other argument was. You said the Santa Monarch argument, people are going to bring others and bring a bunch of sell wealthier houses in those neighborhoods. If that's the case, it's going to increase property value. So and this city is not going to allow what we had there in Midtown, like some of these ugly apartment complexes in the 70s. Any multifamily duplex in the half of the city that's been permitted to do more than single family in the last few years, and I approved many of those when I was in the council for 10 years. You can drive by them now and they seamlessly blend in to the neighborhoods. And my biggest fear is we're going to end up like, frankly, some areas in Natomas. Natomas is a beautiful part of the city. It's part of my district, but some parts of Natomas, the streets are narrow, the lots are smaller, they pack in more density, and they have parking issues. And so I feel for some of the existing neighbors on streets where they have seniors and limited mobility, and you lose your parking spot, it's going to create problems.
So Terry O'Brien is living near 65th Street in Sacramento and brings up that thousands of apartments have been built on 65th Street, and that as far as they can tell, no road or sewer improvements have been made, which also is a feature of
That's false. That's not true. I was on the council. I approved many of those, and some of those had massive improvements that helped other development in the area.
And then the question is also coming up about water. Where's the water going to come from for all of this? We're in serious water shortage, right? Serious drought.
Well, I think most of you in Southern California, where you don't have a water supply, where you take your water from the Colorado River, where it's not a natural place to have housing. That's not as much of an issue for development in Sacramento. It is in the new growth areas where they don't have water, but the existing core of Sacramento, city of Sacramento, my district, that's not as much of an issue.
So Barry Boyd in Sacramento's low-income district 8 said that over 80% of the residential renter properties are owned by corporations. And in the Meadowview community, 60% of the residential properties are owned by corporates. So if corporates are, seeking to maximize their investment, there's a high probability of, these kinds of things being built through the district. Again, how is there anything that you can think of, or something you could work with your colleagues on that would help insulate homeowners from having to compete with Blackstone for a place to live?
Well, I don't necessarily follow that logic and agree with it, because I don't necessarily people are competing, because right now there are no homes to compete with. And this would only have some homes. So even if some of the property owners became, financed by larger corporations, I still think the majority of people that do this would be smaller type individuals or people that want to subdivide their lots, and they're providing more house on the totality. So I don't necessarily, follow and agree with your premise.
Respectfully, Assembly member, there's over 1.2 million vacant housing units in the state, I think, right?
Did we just lose him?
Uh-oh, was it something I said?
No, he said he had to go at 6:55. So that totally makes sense. That he did say, I wish he could have spent more time with us. And I want to appreciate the neighbors who asked really, really good questions. We'd like to keep going if you'd be interested in that. And if Maria and John in particular would like to help answer some of the questions that are coming in through the chat window, these are very, very, very good questions that people are asking. One of the ones that's coming up too is electric vehicles, right? So hi, we thought we lost you because you had to go at 6:55. You're on mute, sir.
Put John back on.
Yes, I do have to go. I have a meeting here with a few legislators to actually talk about hot bills in the next few weeks. But I wanted to come back and say, I appreciate the feedback. And if you want to give me the chat comments and questions and suggestions, I'll take them into consideration. And I know you were concerned this bill is going to come up before the break. I assure you that it won't. It's not going to come up until at least the middle of August. So, or both these bills, I would assume. So I have no problem doing this again. I know we only had a half hour, so.
Thank you for making a half hour available to us, sir. We really appreciate
it. And I appreciate the rapid fire, the moderators. But next time I'd like to see more of my constituents. So thank you.
We will save the window for you and email it to your staff so that you can see all the questions that your neighbors asked.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. So John, audience, if you can see the questions that are in the chat window, they're asking really, really good questions. One of the big ones that they're asking about is affordable housing. So, and do you guys want to talk about why you feel that SB 10 and 9 do not bring affordable housing to the table, and that maybe 15 in particular does?
I know Jeff and Maria can talk for a long time about that.
Go ahead, Maria, you're on.
Well, we don't think it offers any affordable housing. Anytime you have a market that is hot with jobs and high-paying jobs, you're going to have demand. And anything you keep adding to our neighborhoods just keep becoming more market rate. Instead, unless we mandate affordable, we're not going to get affordable. And we have the opportunity with redevelopment funds that the state stopped funding redevelopment funding. They stopped giving redevelopment funding during 2012, which amounted to almost as much as 1 million units of affordable housing that could have been built had that money been given to the cities. Cities need money to make affordable units happen. And without that money, the state can keep punishing people, but they're not going to, cities cannot produce this housing unless they get this funding. And that's what Sacramento needs to step up and do. And we know, sorry, go ahead, John.
Sorry, Maria, that's really the concern. That's why I mentioned trying to get in that question about the amount of vacant units that are currently in existence, because what's been happening is, as most everybody knows, is that we're overproducing market rate units compared to affordable units by, at least in this part of the state, by some order of 3 or 4 to 1. So, everybody, I think there are a few fundamental truths that we can all agree on, and one of which is we need more affordable housing, both for home ownership and for rental. And if I could share my screen, I'd show this to you guys, but there's an interesting curve that you can see as the rents go up, the vacancy rate goes up. So in other words, the higher market rate units that cost, let's just say $1,500-$1,600 a month here to rent and up are going to be more likely to be vacant than the affordable units, which of course makes sense because that's where the demand is. So that's why, folks who say, and I don't know if there are other people from the Senate President Pro Tem staff on or others that want to comment and give us some different thoughts, but this whole notion that we just need to keep dropping more units into a market where you already have over 1 million vacant units. So let's just take half of those 500,000 and set that aside. Okay, that's for vacation rentals and whatever else, investment purposes. That's still, 500,000 units, and we've got 100,000 homeless people statewide. So something's out of whack with the way we're going about this. And I would submit that what we really need to do is get folks together and have more open and honest dialogue and conversations and really focus on what we really need to be doing. And, it's difficult work. It's not easy. We're not always going to agree, but we really need to roll up our sleeves and come together as stakeholders and figure this out. That's my 2 cents.
Fair enough. Some of the other questions that I think are coming through, which are really, Victor Sparks, thank you for being really upfront and honest. He said he's a builder. How would Kevin feel about Victor buying all the properties around his house and putting up 3-story apartment buildings with 10 to 14 units? So I think that is the concern. You have a really good slide that we went over really, really fast. You may want to put it back up on the screen that kind of shows how a neighborhood would look after, right? The before, what family neighborhoods look like, and then the after picture of what it looks like when you put in the sort of SB10s and the lot splits.
We can't share the screen right now.
Can you open up, can you make that available to us?
Yeah, I would think we could do that. Let's see. I believe what we have to do is make you a co-host, right?
Patricia can do that. Why don't you go
There, you have
on to the next question?
I thought you were before.
Yeah, Patricia, can you make our co-host to the?
The one you're talking about, Sharon, I don't have on this particular one. It's going to take us a minute to find it. So why don't we go to another question? We'll try to.
Yeah. So one of the things that's coming through, the neighbors are asking about too, is is there an opportunity to do another meeting with McCarty? And I would highly recommend that. Right. I mean, he is your rep. You should be meeting with him. I really think you should. You should also be communicating with him through his office, right? So there is usually, the assembly member has a website. There's an official way of submitting comment on their website. My understanding, and any staff that's on here, please correct me if that is not the case, is that it usually flags your stuff to the top coming through the website versus just sending something to, Kevin McCarty at asm.ca.gov. And then, you should definitely be in contact with him on his office. He does follow Twitter as well. So please feel free to, tag him on Twitter and have a conversation with him that way. That's a good way to do that. But it does feel like to me, from some of the things that the district residents here are saying, is that they would like to have more time with their assembly rep, and we would love that too. This was all he could give us this evening, unfortunately.
And Sharon, if I can, real fast, I would strongly encourage the committee that put this together to consider changing the format and using just a regular Zoom so everybody can see each other's faces, and you can really get the back and forth that doesn't happen when you've got just us talking heads up here as panelists.
Fair enough, because it's harder sometimes when you have 150 people in a room, right, to be able to scroll through the windows. So we did this in webinar format. So Marie, were you able to get? You want to show us what kind of this looks like?
So this is an. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So here's our typical neighborhood, and what happens once you allow SB 9 and 10, it could look like this, because even though they claim that a developer can't split a lot and do it to the next lot next to it, but another developer can. So if this is one developer who split the lot, next door where there's a single family house, another developer can buy that lot and split it as well. So before long, we can have neighborhoods like this, and our legislators are not thinking of the enormous impact this is actually going to have on our environment, our communities. This is major. This is a major shift. It's the biggest rezoning that we have ever had. And I think we need to have a lot of conversation about it. And I agree with you, Sharon. Everybody's got to connect with him, because until he realizes a lot of you are concerned, he's going to say a yes on this.
You know, and I was hoping he would offer maybe some ways to help protect people against being outbid by developers, right? So I believe a lovely lady named Rhonda is on here that mentioned that she was outbid, you know, considerably for a home. And so, and I believe Maggie Coulter, who is from Elmhurst, wanted to say something as well. I believe, Maggie, you just need to unmute yourself.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to point out that Asemblymember McCarty actually is in error. He describes that what Sacramento wants to do through its general plan is the same as SB 10. This is incorrect. SB 10 would allow 14 units, as you've heard. What the Sacramento general plan would allow up to 6 units, which is still problematic. It raises the issues about infrastructure, loss of trees. I also wanted to point out that we had comments here from a number of Sacramento's more modest neighborhoods who are very concerned about displacement and gentrification. And I don't know if John can speak to this a little bit more, but the idea is that this is going to have minimal impact in neighborhoods, I think is illogical. Why would the legislature do this, or the city of Sacramento, if they think it's not going to have an impact? They obviously think it is going to have an impact. And I think the slide that was just shown was very accurate, but I'm just wondering if John maybe could talk about that a little bit, because that is a serious concern for many neighborhoods in Sacramento, like Oak Park, like my neighborhood, Elmhurst, neighborhoods in South Sacramento. So John, if you could just speak to that. Thank you.
Sure, thanks, Maggie. And I'll try to make my comments brief. And again, you know, I'm interested in the back and forth here, but clearly, you know, these bills are going to have a tremendous impact, particularly on communities of color. You mentioned some neighborhoods up your way. You know, I live in View Park, Windsor Hills, which is a predominantly African-American and historically African-American community, pretty much in the heart of Los Angeles. We're in what's called Baldwin Hills, Ladera Heights, Leimert Park, Hyde Park. All these are pretty much the last remaining areas in Los Angeles where you have predominantly African-American homeowners that, by the way, had to struggle to even get the opportunity to live here. You know, we dealt with redlining, freeways built right through the middle of our communities, which, by the way, you know, 50 years ago, folks that look like me and the assembly member were trying to convince folks in Sacramento back then that that was a bad policy that would destroy neighborhoods. But, you know, that's what happens when folks don't listen to their constituents. But I digress. But the bottom line, and something I want to point out to folks here, is that I'm sitting literally about, 200 yards from a house down the street from where my family and I live, where a cross was burned in 1957, 9 years before I was born, around the corner. So, when African Americans showed up and started buying homes and coming to these areas, obviously we were not welcome. Obviously, there were some racist, segregationist, white supremacist policies that were put in place to try to stop us from moving in here. We overcame that. We managed to, and of course, we had a lot of help from some allies and sympathetic folks who believed in justice and equity and all the things we like to talk about now. So, we overcame all that, and, we're here. We don't have any plans to go anywhere. So now we have to ask the question, when we look at, policies like SB 9 and SB 10 and some of these other so-called housing production bills, what's really what's driving this? Because it's not the need for affordable housing, because as Maria and others have said, if you're trying to create more affordable housing, there's a very specific way to do that. But when you look at the areas where these investors and speculators have heavily concentrated their investments, guess what? It's the low-hanging fruit. It's where land and houses are cheaper. And quite frankly, I could go on and on. Both my grandfathers were preachers, but Carrie's telling me I'm out of time. But they concentrated their efforts in those areas that suffered disproportionately from toxic mortgages and foreclosures in 2008. So now there's a preponderance of these single-family homes that are owned by these folks who, if SB 9 passes, guess what happens to their asset portfolio valuation? It's going to double or triple in value. So, there's a lot to these policies and these bills that we really need to look at and think carefully about. And I'm done. Sorry, Carrie.
Yeah, that's Merle Axelrad is bringing up something also in the chat, which, you know, something that I think is especially concerned for the modest neighborhoods, right? Is that what can often happen here is that you see a lot of jamming in density, right? And when you see that, then what you immediately see is parking overflows right onto the street. And he himself brought that up. He knows, you know, that he's going to have a problem in his district with parking. So Merle said that, you know, if you increase density in certain corridors and parking is kept minimal, you know, what's done to keep folks in those new developments from parking in existing neighborhoods, which, you know, that's a very common problem, right? The parking overflows into a residential area nearby. So they're mentioning specifically a project that's proposed for the corner of Broadway and 16th, and it includes retail and 53 units of housing, but only 38 parking spaces, even though realistically there's going to be many more cars. And so will they not start parking in Land Park? And Land Park neighbors are not really keen about this, nor do they really want restricted parking in front of their homes. So, and we'd also heard similar questions about electric vehicle recharging stations, that if we move to this world, really of electric vehicles, right, in order to fight climate change, and you don't have driveways anymore, right, because you've, you know, developed or you don't have a garage anymore because you've developed that into a junior ADU. What happens to the electric vehicles? Where will those charging stations be in neighborhoods in the future? So these are really, really good questions and really pertinent to one of the reasons some of these bills are very difficult. And I think too, you know, I would think that probably everyone on this phone call, you know, Zoom call, believes that what we do need is more affordable housing. That is truly where the big shortage is. And some folks on the Q&A are mentioning the fact that, you know, there's no longer redevelopment funds to do things creatively from the state to the local jurisdictions to build more affordable housing, that we're going to try it kind of this way, which a lot of people feel like will destroy the community and doesn't provide infrastructure and really hurts us environmentally at this time. So these are, I mean, like I said, some of the questions coming through here, I think are very good, very relevant to the big work. And yeah, the folks that want to meet with both McCarty, and someone is looking to meet with Cooper, Assembly Rep Cooper, they are on here tonight. Totally, we encourage you to do that. We completely 100% encourage you to do that. Some of the people on this call can also help you set up your own town hall forum if you want to try to meet with Assemblymember Cooper. He was invited tonight. He did decline, along with Assemblymember Cooley. And so we would love to help you put a neighborhood town hall on for your reps. Maria, do you have a thought there?
Yeah, well, I just want to go back to the fact that we are all trying to fight for more affordable housing. And a huge urban planner has stated that just in Silicon Valley alone on El Camino Real, there is enough housing potential on that corridor to build 250,000 units of housing without touching single family neighborhoods. So our whole argument here, or our whole point here, is that we have so many boulevards, so many corridors that can be made wonderful with more housing, a lot of affordable housing that will enrich communities and allow single families to exist and multifamily and low density. We want all of it, but we think everything has a right to exist. And I think we need to push for this. And I think our lawmakers need to hear it. And yes, I think that you have to meet with everybody, because if they don't hear from you, they're going to vote the way their leadership is telling them to vote. And they're saying yes on these bills.
Yeah, very much. We have also been asked about HOAs and gated communities. And in the last couple of committee hearings that we've attended, Senator Atkins said that SB 9 does not affect HOAs, but did not mention anything about gated communities.
Right.
And we don't know how strong the provision is for HOA. Maria and Jeff, did you have thoughts about that, or John?
The people we talk to that are lawyers for HOAs say there's no protection for HOAs in these bills.
Okay. And that's kind of the same thing that we got about when we asked a question about fire danger, that actually the bill actively, Senate Bill 9 in particular, actively encourages building in the high wildfire zones.
Well, they say they allow building if you can mitigate for fire, which means if you build with certain types of wood, no wood and certain materials, they'll let you build there. So it's really disingenuous of them to say that they're not allowing this to happen in high fire zones. They are allowing it if you mitigate for it.
Yeah, very much. Hey, and Lori Stetson said that we should talk to the California Black Caucus, that they could make some changes in the bills. That is a great idea, with LA Urban League coming out really strongly against 9 and 10, feeling like it's going to hurt their communities. That probably is a good place to do that. And when we met with Assemblymember Isaac Bryan over the weekend, he was very, very firm that he wanted to do everything he could to protect his community, which is 85% Black. So it definitely the folks in the more diverse communities are definitely feeling not the same about these bills as the proponents that are really pushing them. So, and then I was going to see if there's any more questions in here that we sort of didn't cover. And yes, we strongly encourage everyone on this call, tweet to your rep if you're on Twitter. Please call their office, please set up meetings with them, please communicate with them through their portal. It's really important to participate heavily in the democratic process. And that also involves really letting our reps know how they feel about us, or letting our reps know how we feel about bills that they're going to try to pass in the before they go vote, which we think could be happening sometime soon.
Sharon, sorry, real fast, something else that we don't often talk about in this discussion or debate is, everybody says we need to build more units. So we talk on the supply side. There's a whole nother side of this equation on the demand side that deals with vouchers, for example, and, Section 8 and vacant units that are not accessible and not basically run down and dilapidated and need to be rehabbed. There's a huge opportunity there, both to create more housing faster and to put some people to work to get some more good paying jobs out there. If we just look a little more broadly than just this back and forth about we need more units. How many more units do we need to build? We need to look at everything.
Right.
Yeah, very much so. And to, Barry Boyd, you're making the best points of all. What is driving this greed? He's making this point in the Q&A window, and it's a really good one. That, very often the folks like Blackstone, Deutsche Bank, Wells Fargo, et cetera, have all the funding in the world to be able to buy a property, sit on it, develop it, turn it into a kind of, permanent rental. And the haves and the haves, sort of that story. So he's got a really good point there. Merle is asking another good question too, and this goes more to state organizing, and some of the questions that have come in are going that direction. So we are, John, Maria, myself, and we are part of a statewide team that consists of multiple groups. United Neighbors is one of the groups. We've also met a lot with Livable California. They are one of the groups that does a lot of statewide organizing. And then there's a California Alliance of Local Elected Officials that have also kind of sprung up because the traditional voice that would have spoken up for cities on Sacramento legislation, which was League of California Cities, is neither well respected nor organized this year. So other methods of grassroots organizing have sprung up, and very much we are watching the hearings, these bills as they move through the Housing and Community Development Committee, as they move through local government. They did today in local government as they move through appropriations. They've already cleared the Senate floor at this point, and they are now over in the Assembly, where there is opportunity to try to get them amended to make them work better, or to say, no, this isn't good enough. Please give us a better tool, right? Please give us something that will get us housing that doesn't just hurt our communities, right? Any of you are welcome to join those teams. Any of you are welcome. We would welcome you to be part of that effort in as much as you would like to participate. And I'm trying to think, what's the best way to get in touch with us? Is it through United Neighbors, do you think, through the United Neighbors website?
Yeah, I think that would be the best way, because we help inform each other what's going on, what bills we have to watch, when to send position papers, when to contact your legislator, when to have town halls. We really try to talk to each other and unite each other, because we need to be a very strong voice here, because we're not at the table on this. Real estate interests are at the table and they're working this hard, and we don't have much voice, but we do have a vote, and that's what we have to remember. So unitedneighbors.net is our website. They can send an email to us and I can forward it to everybody. Like you said, Sharon, we're all on the same highway. We're on different lanes. United Neighbors has neighborhood groups. California Association of Local Electeds have people that are in office. Livable California has a lot of individuals that they inform. We're just trying to get the message out to everybody. These are very critical things that are being voted on.
Very much so. And we will be saving the Q&A window for Kevin McCarty. So thank you guys for putting in questions and also identifying your neighborhood, right? So that helps him to know, like, where is the concern coming from in his particular, district, in his community. That was very good to do that. So, and we will make sure that his staff gets to see the Q&A window. We'll save it for him. And we also have our recording tonight's town hall so that you can share it. It will be up on Save Sacramento Neighborhoods, probably website and on their Facebook page. Welcome me to share that around to friends who couldn't make it tonight, who maybe don't know about these. Maria and Jeff, you had something, and Maggie also.
Actually, I want to jump in real quick. People can also contact information not only about SB 9 and 10, but also the general plan, which again is going to do something similar, attempting to do something similar in Sacramento. So go to savesacramentoneighborhoods.org. All of our contact information is on there. I also just wanted to point out, it was quite an effort to get Kevin McCarty to agree to come to this meeting. And he would only do it for half an hour. I'm pleased that he addressed many of the questions himself, but yes, I see people's questions. I know it's frustrating. It was set up this way because we thought we'd have a lot of people and we were trying to manage it. I think we need to set up another meeting with him where it is a face-to-face meeting and people can ask him questions. So we will work with him to do that. He also does forums sometimes, but he doesn't necessarily engage with people, but I'm hearing him wanting to engage. So again, you can get in touch with these groups. All the information is on the Save Sacramento neighborhoods.org website.
Okay, Sharon, there's one point I wanted to get across. An assembly member kept talking about, well, in Sacramento, we have these great trees, and in Sacramento, we're only going to have 3 stories. No, these bills overrule all city ordinances.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand that a developer doesn't care what the city says. The state says you can go in, buy a couple of lots, tear them down, and put 14 apartment houses on each one of those. So if you stop and think about the pressure to develop, and you go to what John was saying about some of the communities of color, where the property value is a little less, but they're also right at the edge of where a lot of this bubble is happening. So the market might say, oh, I'm an individual, I'll buy here. But once you have these bills passed, the developer is going to say, this is golden. I'm going to go buy 3 lots in a row, tear them down, put up anywhere from 18 to 30 something units because I can. I mean, and that's what's going to make all this stuff go like wildfire. So it overrules all local zoning. That's the saddest part of all. And the assembly member kept talking about the fact what Sacramento could do. That's what we all want to do. You want to have local control. My time's up.
Sharon, there's a question about who else can we talk to besides McCarty? I mean, I think people still need to talk to McCarty, but I don't know. Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I do. So you have also Cooley, and you also have Cooper in this region. Although I know that we only have some folks here from Cooper's district, I think, tonight. So I would love to see more neighbors do what you did tonight and put together a town hall with Cooley and Cooper, right? Those would be really good ones to speak to in your area. And then there have been town halls that have been going on all across the state. Maria did one last night with Pleasanton, the district for Pleasanton. We did one in our district in Santa Barbara. And you've had some down south also in LA. So communities are doing this across the state, right? They are trying to get town halls together with their legislators for this exact reason, right? Is to really try to have a conversation with them before they go to vote. That it's important to know how your constituents feel about something before you get on the floor. There's a beautiful graphic. I should have had it up for you tonight, but it shows you just the housing bills that are going through the legislature this year. And literally your eyes will kind of cross and, it'll give you a headache to look at, right? So many bills. And that's just housing, right? It's not job development. It's not any of the other stuff that Sacramento deals with. So a lot of times when you start talking to your representative, about these bills, they'll say, wait, I don't know what bill that is because they didn't author it, right? So so that's one of the reasons we had Maria and Jeff present tonight, is because McCarty indicated to us he wasn't very familiar with these bills, and what they did. Even though this is, I think, their fourth time trying to be passed through the legislature. And Merle, who keeps asking me who's for these bills, last year, Senate Bill 9 got 43 out of 80 votes in the assembly. So the will was there to pass it last year. It was just a technicality as to why it didn't pass. That's why it's coming back through. But yes, I think it's very important for our communities up and down the state to absolutely meet with their legislators. And honestly, your city council members also are probably sweating some of this in other communities. I know Sacramento, your city council members are very, very pro this, but some city council members in a lot of other communities are very upset because it's taking away all the local controls. But without giving you really good tools to build something that the community needs and that would fit well into the community. So I feel like at the end of the day, our hope is that enough legislators have had enough meetings with their constituents to be able to turn to the authors of the bills and say, I can't vote for this. My community's not crazy about it. And I just need better tools than you're giving me to get more housing and to get more affordable housing. And that's a fair conversation to have. So that is where we're kind of hoping this goes. But that gives you a picture of the big landscape that we are all standing on.
And Sharon, to your point, last year it passed with 43 votes. We feel that if we get 3 of those to change their mind, they don't pass this bill. So if everybody stays the way they voted last year, but we convince 3 people that there's better ways and healthier ways to go forward, I think we have a shot at making some policy that'll be different and will be more equitable all around.
Very much so.
Absolutely. And another fine point real fast, Sharon, is this whole notion that if we just build more units, everything will be okay. That, and like that's a basic fundamental economic premise. I think Ronald Reagan had something called trickle-down economics, and I don't think that theory worked out too well. You have to very specifically focus on creating more affordable housing. And that's what we're not doing. And that's what we need to do. And if we don't do that, we're going to be talking about the same thing 20 years from now. So it's really not acceptable to allow anybody to make that argument that, well, we just need more units and somehow or another that'll work its way out and filter down through the system. No, that's not true.
Go ahead.
Sharon, I might suggest also for people on this call to look up the Embarcadero Institute. They have wonderful statistics on what John was talking about, how much more market rate housing is being built versus affordable housing, and how the funding has completely fallen off. So all of a sudden there is no affordable housing being built. They need to go to Embarcadero Institute. There are lots of charts. People can see what's been happening to California.
Got it. I want to thank the audience that was here tonight. Looking at the created group that obviously knew some things about housing, knew some things about zoning. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time. We really, really appreciate this. I really want to encourage you to keep going and to work with Kevin as much as you can. And, if you know people in other communities that haven't gone through what you've just experienced, that don't know what you now know, please feel free to talk to them and say, are you talking to your assembly rep? Have you had a conversation with them yet? Have you had a meeting with them yet as a community? Nice thing about Zoom is plenty of free parking, no commuting, right? So, it makes it like a lot easier to be able to get folks together. It collapses the space-time barrier, thankfully. But it's great to see it, this many people turn out with really the team that put this together had less than a week. So thank you so much for coming and for bringing the really good questions to the table and for really participating and spending this time with your assembly rep and with us. And we really hope going forward that we can get some more of these going in your neighborhood. And for the folks here that are in McCarty's district, please continue to meet with him, please. He is your representative.
I would like to close with, before you close, with James Randlett's question. Can you comment? You want to read that?
Yeah, so James is saying his guess is that if this rezoning were put to a vote of the people today, it would lose in dramatic fashion. Probably so. Is it being considered to force this to the ballot? No. These are bills that have been authored and put forward. They've cleared one house, which is the Senate. They are now trying to clear the second house, which is the Assembly. If they clear the Assembly with 41 votes or more, that's all it will take to pass through the Assembly. Out of 80 legislators, 41 votes is the bare majority to get it passed. Then they will go before the governor for signature in August, September timeframe. So that is the process, and no, it's not going to ballot.
Well, unless we make that happen, but yeah.
I'm not sure how we would make that happen.
Well, you could make an initiative. You could put an initiative on the ballot.
Yeah, I don't know how much runway we've got left to do that. Right? Given, I mean, isn't the recall elections like timed for September, October, right? So, I mean, we're kind of running out of runway, I think, to get signature to put something on the ballot, right? So
we do want to encourage people to join groups, speak up, get the strength of groups behind you. These legislators are really under a lot of pressure to pass these bills. There's a lot of pressure on them, but the only pressure we can give back is that we don't want these bills and we want something better. And that's what we have to make sure we make them here. So join a group.
Very much so. Welcome you to join United Neighbors. Welcome you to join Livable California. Get involved. Thank you so much. We promised we would end on time. So we will respect everyone here's time tonight. Thank you very much for spending your time with us this evening.
Yeah, and we want to thank you. We from Sacramento want to thank you folks that, you know, Sharon and Maria and Jeff and John for joining us. Patricia